can't trust this president to do what's right for this country.
This is the weakest case for impeachment in the history of this country.
The impeachment trial of Donald Trump took over airwaves this week, with House Democrats accusing the president of putting his own personal interests above national security and democracy in his dealings with Ukraine. Plus, we have 2 sit-down interviews with candidates running for U.S. Congressional District 13.
Good evening, I'm Jim Lara.
And a legend of journalism is being remembered following his passing. A look back at the career of Jim Lehrer, a man who has moderated more debates than any individual in American history. Good morning and thanks for joining us. I'm Shatanya Clark. The Trump team has begun making its case in the Senate impeachment trial of President Trump. You can watch a full wrap-up later today on Meet the Press. But first, Lauren Blanchard tells us about the 3rd day of opening arguments for House managers.
The managers for the House of Representatives have 7 hours and 53 minutes remaining.
House Democrats wrapping up their 3rd and final day of opening arguments, shifting their focus to the 2nd article of impeachment, obstruction of Congress.
President Trump tried to cheat. He got caught, and then he worked hard to cover it up.
This as Democrats continued pressing for documents and key witnesses to testify, urging Republicans to vote on a resolution to issue subpoenas.
Will 4 Republican senators, just 4, rise to the occasion, do their duty to their Constitution, to their country?
Meanwhile, Senate Republicans work to defend the president. Senator Lindsey Graham saying President Trump's request for Ukraine to investigate the Bidens was well-founded, despite Democrats pointing to a lack of evidence.
I am going to look at this if nobody else does, and that doesn't make me a Russian agent.
On Twitter, the president bemoaned his defense beginning on a Saturday, calling the time slot TV's Death Valley. Still, White House Press Secretary Stephanie Grisham said the president's team is ready.
He's got a team of lawyers with decades and decades of legal experience, and then we've got the truth on our side that he did nothing wrong.
And then the president's legal team will have Monday and Tuesday to wrap things up. On Capitol Hill for Texoma Politics Now, I'm Lauren Blanchard. Shatanya, back to you.
Thank you, Lauren. Now, to give us a little more insight into the impeachment trial, we're joined with Dr. Steve Garrison from the Political Science Program at Midwestern State University. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Now, Democrats are searching for Republicans who believe the president's pressuring Ukraine. Now, what are the chances that anyone is convinced?
Well, I mean, as you just saw, when you have Republican senators publicly stating that their minds are made up and they're not going to consider the evidence, the likelihood's probably pretty unlikely. But at the same time, we have an additional amounts of evidence coming out on almost a daily basis. Today, there's a report of an audio tape of President Trump firing Ambassador Yovanovitch. We'll see where that goes. And I'm not really sure what the strategy is when we're seeing close to 70% of Americans want to hear from witnesses, and then another about 59% have concluded that President Trump abused the powers of the presidency, have obstructed Congress, and that a pure majority is supporting his removal. I'm not really sure what the strategy is at this point.
Right. Well, people will obviously make comparisons to the Clinton trial. Now, to give us a little historical perspective, how are these trials different and the same?
Right. Well, all impeachment cases are unique and different because they're such an unusual thing. But I think the biggest difference is the support for public removal, the public support for removal. During the Clinton impeachment, it never surpassed 30%. We've had over a month where it's well in the 51%. Clinton's impeachment involved personal conduct. The Rudygate thing involves national security, our elections, checks and balances, the powers of Congress. We have public confessions from the president, one in writing. We have, and I guess maybe a bigger difference is at least during the Democratic approach during the Clinton impeachment trial, they at least gave the appearance of considering and weighing the evidence, even though they voted to acquit him.
Right. In your opinion, what is the strongest case you've seen against the president so far?
Well, I mean, the idea of this using power for personal gain. I think the best example is if we saw something like in 2012, Chris Christie, who was the governor of New Jersey, there was a massive storm right before the election. He went to the U.S. President Obama at the time, and asked for disaster relief help. Could we imagine a situation where if the president had come back and said, well, yeah, but I need you to do me a favor and investigate Mitt Romney? I mean, I think we'd all understand that's a complete violation of public trust.
In your opinion, what do you believe will be the end result of all of this?
Well, I mean, we're going to see what happens, but as long as the Republicans continue to go down this road, it may be the end of sort of being a viable national party, but it sounds like President Trump's going to be acquitted.
Okay. Well, the 2020 caucus is less than 2 weeks away. Do you believe the impeachment trial will have any impact on the Democratic Party?
Yeah, the poll numbers, or recent poll numbers, are showing growth for the Democratic candidates. Polls this week had both Biden and Bloomberg at 9-point leads. Even Pete Buttigieg, that's kind of an unknown mayor, was just outside the margin of victory. That's a much bigger trend than we've seen recently. And then the bigger thing is I'm seeing a lot in polls of the under 30 demographic is approaching about 2/3 that support his removal. We'll see what happens. That's a demographic that's notoriously hard to mobilize, but if a Democratic candidate can mobilize that, you're talking about a generational power shift. So keep our eyes on the young people in the future.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us,
Sure,
Dr.
thank you.